Well, hello everyone, and welcome. We have one more visitor. I'll wait until...
I'm sure it's John Kidd. Yeah, it's
Bird.
Hello.
Hi there.
Come on in. You're just in time. Just in time.
Mark, you should have one more.
Well, so I think tonight our conversation was going to be about living beyond the mind. But as I said at the end of our last session last week, we covered most of that. So I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about tonight. I'm still not sure what I'm going to talk about tonight, which is really kind of fun. It's its own curious little adventure. I think what I really want to do is kind of focus on some of my own experiences over the course of the last week or two. And kind of frame it in this place where let's revisit a little bit the conversation about mind, and then let's talk about a few different relationships, a few different kinds of relationships that we can have. So last week, kind of the second half of, when we started opening it up to discussion, really became about the nature of mind itself and how the mind is the playground of thought. It's that place in which we entrap ourselves in the use of words, concepts, and ideas to try to tell ourselves a story about the world that we find ourselves in. And that's inclusive of both the story that we tell ourselves about who it is that we think we are, and the stories we tell ourselves about what we think the world is. And how what we truly are is something that is beyond the mind. It's as if the mind is a raft floating upon the seas of consciousness, and we're grasping desperately to the raft, not quite ready to jump into the sea. Some of us are more than happy. We're standing on the raft going, I really want it to all come together. I really want to be able to find freedom. I really want it. And yet we stand on the raft, and we look at the water, and we go, but I want it on my terms. I want it my way. I don't want to get wet. I want to jump into the seas of consciousness, and I don't want to get wet. Which becomes an interesting conundrum. So we spend our time seeing the world and experiencing the world through the lens of the conceptual self. And the mind and the conceptual self and thought and all these things, they're all intertwined, they're all interconnected, they're all kind of the same thing. What we truly are, though, is that sea of conscious awareness. And what we were talking about last week was a lot about how to shift ourselves so that we're no longer viewing the world through concepts, through models, through ideas, through notions. We are at one with the raw, essential nature of the moment itself. We and the moment are one. It's all a singular conscious expression that we find ourselves dancing, and it isn't in the mind. The mind is that which is trying to explain it. That's why, no words can be used to actually say, here's what it is. Because it isn't in that place. It can't be found with words. It cannot be found with words. At best, we can point to it and say, it's over there. Go find it for yourself. So that's the nature of the mind. We're busy. We were talking earlier about this, and I've said it many times before, about how much of the spiritual journey that we find ourselves on is about entertaining and exhausting the egoic self until it has nowhere left to go, until it sees the nature of the story it's telling itself. When we're so in tune with our own minds that we begin to see, oh look, there's a story. Oh look, there's a story. Oh look, there's a story. And now I'm telling myself about stories, and now I'm telling myself stories about not having stories. And on and on and on this lovely little adventure goes until the mind is seen through as that which is just a perpetual storyteller. And often the stories we're telling ourselves, they don't have happy endings. They're not great stories. Most of the stories we tell ourselves are stories that are very heavy, very weighty, very difficult, very challenging, very demanding, very painful. Trying to measure up to who it is that we think we're supposed to be. And so there are a couple of different kinds of relationships that we can have with the mind. One of them is we can become completely lost in it. Completely lost in the mind. Absolutely ignorant of the fact that there's anything outside the mind, anything beyond the mind. It's just, this is just the way I see the world. I have my views, my opinions, my beliefs. I have all of my conditioned patterns of behavior. I have all the things that are moving in my life, and it just is what. And we're trying to control it and make life do what it is we want it to do, and we have no idea. We have no idea the beauty of what we're swimming in. So we can be in that place where we're just, it's all painful and difficult and hard. Why does it suck so much? We might have a different variation, but that variation is also in the mind. Then we can reach into this place where through awareness, we talked last week about awareness, moving through these stages progressively, awareness, discipline, and then moving beyond the mind itself. So in this place where we might bridge the gap between awareness and discipline, being able to become best friends with our minds, to engage in a relationship, a love affair with the mind, a love affair with the conceptual self, a compassionate embracing of who it is that we think we are. That part of us that is struggling against what is, to embrace that part of ourselves with compassion, with love, with kindness, with generosity, gratitude, and grace, to be able to hold ourselves in the spaciousness that we truly are. And on one hand, we will see ourselves shift in and out of this place, and we'll be reaching for it desperately. Like, why did it disappear? I had it, it was right there. Why did it fall away? I need it again, right? I need my next fix of truth. I need my next fix of consciousness. We're our own best friend, but we're also our own worst enemy, because we're still playing with ourselves in the mind. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful dance. It really and truly is a beautiful dance. And then we can go to that next place, that next layer, where we begin to understand what the mind is and how the mind dances upon the seas of consciousness. How it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle of delivery, sort of, in some ways. A vehicle of delivery for what needs to occur within the experience of being itself. If I'm acting a certain way, doing a certain thing, seeing the universe from a certain perspective, whatever it is, that is a movement within this harmony that had to occur. And I'm the vehicle of delivery for that. The mind is the vehicle for delivery. And it doesn't matter what kind of a relationship we have with our minds. It doesn't matter if we're completely ignorant. We're still in the same place. It doesn't matter if we have our mind as our own best friend and worst enemy. It's still the same place. It doesn't matter if we're completely free from it. It's still the same place. Matter of fact, when you get to a certain point in the journey, you look back on the whole thing and you go, wow, there really wasn't a me to be in any of those places to begin with. The mind created the imaginary me that I was in contention with the whole time. And then we get to another stage, another place, because we can entertain this idea of being beyond the mind. And it's something that many of us can reach into in our meditative practices. It's something that many of us can reach into when we find ourselves truly at one with the moment, truly at one with ourselves. But there's something deeper where we have to begin to embrace our humanity. It's interesting how a lot of the things that come up in the spiritual journey are in some way, shape, or form an effort to try to free ourselves from the struggle that we put ourselves in. a lot of us have these ideas of what we think spirituality is, what we think enlightenment is, what we think awakening is, what we think transcendence is. And the truth of all these things is they're somewhere buried deeply in our humanity, not in our divinity. And so a lot of what we're chasing on the spiritual journey is some aspect of our divinity that we can re-identify ourselves with. Oh, look, I'm an expression of consciousness. Lovely, wonderful. Look, I'm able to zone out into the depths of being. Wonderful. Can you pay your rent? I mean, you still have to pay taxes. You still have friends and loved ones who have demands on you and your time. You still have difficulties showing up every day. Chasing divinity doesn't prevent us from having to experience these things. Chasing enlightenment, chasing some notion of what that is, it doesn't really, in the end, serve us in the same way, to the same depth that accepting ourselves completely does. Complete acceptance of ourselves, complete acceptance of all of our brokenness, all of our notions, all of the ways in which we delude ourselves, all of the ways in which we lie to ourselves, all the ways in which we forget to love ourselves and love each other. Being able to find within ourselves the depths of our humanity. I remember listening to Ram Dass talk one time, and I thought it was quite beautiful the way he was framing it, but he was talking about how he would get on stage and he would talk to large groups of people about, the nature of enlightenment, how to find God within yourself, right? All these kinds of things. And he's like, so here I am, I'm spending my whole life completely dedicated to finding the divine within. And yet I get letter after letter after letter from these people who come to me and say, your humanity is so beautiful. Right? And that's it. Because there's that deep connection with what we are on one level, right? What we are. The essence of love itself. I mean, there's so many different stories we can tell ourselves, but again, if we're going to tell ourselves any story, let's tell ourselves a love story. So let's move in that direction. It is at the heart of what we are and how we move and what this is about. And yet at the same time, when we're in life, it does not necessarily feel that way. It doesn't necessarily feel that way. We're being pummeled by life from every direction. I mean, goodness gracious. Is it all so weird? And the true spiritual journey isn't about, having a perfect life. It's not about having a perfect mind. It isn't about having perfect enlightenment. Life is about being perfectly okay with where you are in any given moment. To embrace the beauty of what we are at every level. At every level. And the only way we can do that is by turning the essence of our being inward, right? Being able to see that loving nature that is at the heart of what we are is something that we benefit most from when we shine in our own direction. That if we're so busy loving everybody and loving the world and not shining that light in our own direction, that we're missing a really big part of it. It doesn't mean we have to run up and hug everybody, but it does mean that we have to allow for love to do its work through us. And there was a conversation we were having a couple of days ago about, love isn't necessarily what we think it is. You know, many people have this notion, this idea, right? Well, love means, you know, you give everybody what they want, you do what they need, you help them out. Is that what love is? You know, we're in a Zen meditation center, and I will tell you that, you know, if there's a Zen master with a large stick and he strikes a student to knock that student into reality, that's love. To tell someone what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear, that's love. It's just a question of where it's coming from. Right? Am I trying to control the situation, control the person, create an outcome of my own expectation? Am I doing it for my own misguided reasons? Am I doing it from a place within the mind that's trying to tell itself a story? And if I can just have it this way, if I can just have it that way. Or are we in a place where we've abandoned all notion of self, all concept, all idea of it's just me or any of that kind of stuff, and it's more about being able to say, I'm a part of something so much larger than myself that I can't even possibly begin to understand it. My only job is to show up for it. My only job is just to be in it each and every day. So I want to kind of flip it on its head a little bit, because, you know, when we get together and we talk, a lot of times I'm really kind of focusing on, you know, how can we let go of the conceptual self, realize the truth of who and what we are, and move through life from that place. And at the very same time, I always say, there's nothing we can actually do. It is the unfolding of being. And within being, all doing is done. We don't actually have to necessarily force our way into the flow of life. We don't necessarily have to try to control the stream. Matter of fact, that's how we lose ourselves. That's kind of, that's how we find ourselves getting washed away. And yet that too is part of it all. So like I said, I don't know, you know, I'm not sure what my topic is at this point. But I think the predominant theme here tonight is really kind of saying that there is a place that we can reach within our own experience of being, where we are no longer experiencing the world through the confusion of the conditioned mind. We're at peace with ourselves, we're at peace with the world that we live in, because we see how we're the ones creating it. Not this idea of you create your own reality, like there's some energetic compulsion that's part of it. It's about how you interact with reality through your mind. So there's a place you can get to that is a spaciousness beyond the mind. And yet, to try to hold on to that is a notion that creates a direction that leads us astray. And the only way to get to that place is to understand that we have to learn to love ourselves, trust ourselves, honor our own journey. To learn to love who it is that we already are, to see the beauty of our unique expressions and how we're all playing a part, how we're all working together and growing together and shifting through this thing called life together. And how it's only in doing it together that we'll be able to free ourselves. Because none of us is in this alone. Not really. There are times when I'll say that we're in it alone. And there are times where I'll say it isn't. But for tonight's conversation, right, that embracing of our humanity, it's very important that we find that we have to ground ourselves in the world that we're in. It's very much like, you know, you go through this journey where you're in life and suddenly you have all these experiences or all these things that show you that something's not quite right, and then you go through this spiritual journey and you become the seeker and you seek and you find, and then you go through this whole letting go process, and then you get to a place where you're like, wow, there's nothing really to let go of, and you end up right where you started. And then you're right back in the same predicament, and the only answer that's left to you is accept your humanity. And know that every time you're moving in consciousness, every time you're moving out of consciousness, every time you're forgetting, every time you're remembering, every time you're the good guy, every time you're the bad guy, that too is a part of it. That's a part of our humanity. It is through our humanity that the divine is fully expressed. Can we wrap ourselves around that and bring ourselves to a place where we can acknowledge that and use it as kind of an entry point into dialogue with ourselves so that we can say to ourselves, I love this one. I love this one. I have compassion for this one. This person that, the engine is over here. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not doing it right. You're getting it all wrong. And then that other part of us that goes, shh, quiet. It's all right. It's all right. Just allow yourself to have a little bit of compassion for where you find yourself in any given moment. Because only when we fully accept ourselves, only when we completely accept ourselves, can we even begin to accept others. Can we even begin to allow a space for others to be who they are? And then we end up in that understanding. We end up playing in that spaciousness where you see the truth of it, that your freedom, your experience of being free is directly connected to your ability to allow others to be free. That if you're so busy judging yourself, beating yourself up, how are you going to do anything other than that to others? How do you have anything other than that to offer? If you cannot be kind with yourself and you think that you're being kind with others, it's not kindness. Not really, not heartfelt, not from that deeper place. If we examine things deeply, we often see, there was something in it for me. I wanted it to move this way, so I added this to it. So being able to be fully present with our humanity, being able to be fully present with all the things that we find ourselves doing on any given day. Because true spirituality isn't about getting away. It isn't about going anywhere. True spirituality is about arriving here. It's about being fully present in this moment. Here, now, as it is. That relationship with reality that isn't created in the mind. The relationship with reality that arises and falls away in reality. It's just this. So that's a little bit for, just to play with this evening. And, so we can open it up and converse and have some dialogue. But, like I said, I wanted to talk about something that's been, active for me over the last couple of weeks. It was kind of creating that shift of moving more into harmony with accepting the challenge of being human. Accepting the challenge of being broken and knowing that it's okay. And I think we all go through this in different ways, in different stages, at different times. And I know that because I've heard everyone go through it at some point. But anyway, so we can open it up for conversation. See what folks have to say or share or whatever the case may be.
So what you're talking about, the way about sometimes we use spirituality to try to escape from being human rather than being there and be human, accepting the human. I can see myself doing that. It's like, yeah. And I see how that's done. It's like, if I can be spiritual over here, then I won't have to look at that and worry about it. Yeah, that's thinking we're escaping the pain and we're not.
Yeah, it's one of those balancing points between, are we detached in a way that allows us to be connected, or are we detached in a way that allows us to hide? Because that word detachment has two sides to it, right? And sometimes we can misunderstand our relationship with detachment. Sometimes we can be in that place where we say, not my problem, you're screwed, but not my problem, right? There's no love in that. There's no kindness in that, right? There's no embracing. It's more that compassionate, ability to be able to say, oh, There but by the grace of God go I. Right? Or even better, being able to see how we ourselves have been through some of the same things. You know, instead of pretending that we haven't and judging people who are in those places. Well, I made it through that place, so I'm good. So that's your problem. You deal with it.
Been there, done that, don't even look at it.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, we can use spirituality. We can use spirituality to hide from ourselves in very big ways. You know, trying to chase going somewhere. I know that there are a lot of belief systems and practices and things like that that are out there today that will tell you things like, you know, you vibrate at a certain frequency and you can just, you know, shoot up into the atmosphere, you know, that kind of stuff. Great, you know, if you can make that happen, by all means, go for it. But, you know, I sit in that same realm where the Buddha would say, you know, or any being who's gone through these things, to say that kind of stuff is a distraction. That kind of stuff, if you're busy trying to get somewhere, that's great. That's the impetus, that's your movement, that's the direction of things for you. That's great. But just know that it isn't really going to get you anywhere. And that ultimately you're going to have to come back to this place of deep acceptance of the way things are here now in this moment, in this place, and that there isn't anywhere to go. You know, wherever you go, there you are, right? There's a beautiful book by Bornstein, I guess. I don't remember who wrote it, but you know, but it's very true. Wherever we go, there we are. And so if we're busy trying to get away from ourselves, instead of accepting ourselves as we are, we will never find ourselves. You know, it's kind of a little vicious circle that we create. If I'm always trying to find myself over the next hill.
Just when did I lose myself? It's out there somewhere.
It's out there somewhere. But that's part of the illusory nature of the whole thing, right? That's part of the illusion. That's one of those things that the conceptual self does. The conceptual self feels like it's not whole, it's not complete, it needs something more. If I just have this, I'll be done, I'll be okay, it'll all be all right. And we're reaching for that thing, whatever that thing may be, over and over and over again, trying to get it. And it doesn't matter if it's buying stuff, it doesn't matter if it's watching stuff, it doesn't matter if it's drinking stuff, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's spiritual. These are all just ways in which we're labeling our sense of incompleteness, which is illusory. Within the experience of being nothing is also the experience of being everything, and knowing that there is nothing that needs to be added and nothing that can be taken away. And it's all right here in our humanity. It's all right here in this experience. And we don't have to go running around chasing it and playing, you know, oh, well, now, you know, I want to be super spiritual human person. And now, you know, you're running around trying to save everybody. It's not that either. It's just another notion. It's another way in which we find ourselves lost. It's another way in which we set ourselves with a goal. It's another way in which the ego extends itself into the spiritual realm. It's, you know, now I'm spiritual so-and-so. Now I'm doing this spiritual thing. It's, you know, spirituality is just life. Life. That's all it is. Life, truth, love, all these things, they're the same thing. They all point to the same center. They all point to the same core, to the same source, to the same reality. There's no escaping it. Spirituality doesn't take us away from any of that. Spirituality funnels us right into the heart of it in a way that we cannot ignore. Because the mind exhausts itself and sees through itself and goes, oh.
I feel like my mind is just going, you know, with some stuff I've been working on. It's like it's just pooped.
That's right, sure, yeah.
But I guess we have to get that way. Or at some
We
point
do.
Before anything can come in. Otherwise, we're analyzing everything, making up things.
You know, and that's you know, many of us do that, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful because it is what it is, and it is that movement. It's all, it all has to be accepted. It all has to be accepted.
Can we talk about how it's all impersonal?
Sure.
About that, please.
Okay. A lot of the time, we find ourselves in the small me, in the illusory I. We're living from the mind. We're living from that place where we're attached to our concept of self. So here I am, I'm Brad. Right? And as Brad, I have these events that occur in my life. And some of these events I like, some of these events I don't like. So I start chasing the things I like, and I start running away from the things I don't like. And we find ourselves lost, right? We're constantly running and chasing, running and chasing, running and chasing. And yet, if we look deeply and we start to see the momentary, fragmented nature of thought, the changing, ephemeral, ever-shifting, ever-changing harmony of motion, right? If we begin to see that, we begin to witness, no past, no future, just the moment, and even the moment itself, it's very light. It's very light. It's just like a frame in a movie playing out. It's just very light. The present moment itself has no real grit to it. The concept of self falls away a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, and at some point you begin to get insight into this understanding. The I that I think I am, the I that is in resistance, the I that is taking everything so personally, isn't really I. It's the way in which the ego, that egoic manifestation of consciousness, is taking ownership of the whole experience, right? We're just a vehicle of expression, movement within the great harmony of motion. And yet it is because that we try to grab a hold of the whole experience and say, this is I, this is me, this is mine. We make everything personal. We make it all personal. And we say, why did this good thing happen to me? Why did this bad thing happen to me? Why is it so hard? Why does this keep happening again? Why does this over and over and over? We go through all these variations, some of it very beautiful, some of it very dark, some of it very wonderful, some of it very difficult. It's that place where, again, when you recognize, you see that the conceptual self falls away, and you, as an expression within consciousness, don't have much real reality. You're really real, but not as really real as you think you are. Right? When you get to that fun little place where all the paradoxes kind of collapse in on themselves, and you're like, I don't even want to know anymore. I'm done trying to chase it. Because every time I try to grab its tail, it just shakes me loose. Right? I get hurt in the process. You get to that place where you surrender more and more and more that conceptual notion of I as an individual independent entity, as something that is separate from the whole. And you begin to recognize that it's all connected, it's all intertwined, it's all the same stuff. You, me, the room, the experiences, the challenges, all the same stuff. And none of it's personal. There's not one personal thing happening in anyone's life. Not one. It's trying to take it all and say, this is about me. This is about me. It's not about you. There's no you. You're just an expression of something so much larger that you can ever possibly wrap your mind around. That's what you are. And that is impersonal. It applies to the totality, it applies to the absolute, it applies to the movement of things, the direction of things, the purpose of things, which, again, if we want to explore those things, we can tell ourselves whatever stories we want to. It's only here. This is all there really is. So shifting from that place where it's all personal, The weight of it is so heavy, and you're holding it all on your own shoulders. And then being able to shift away from that, to set the load down, to see the impersonal nature of it, how you and I and this event and this person and that person are all intertwined and all connected and all dancing together within this harmony. It's the I that thinks me. The I that thinks me. Does that help? Yes.
My question is, can you expand on the line of questioning that to be used to remove the obstacles that get in the way of moving forward?
That there are no obstacles.
Okay, so there's a lot of things, like I listen to a lot of videos and stuff like that, and it's like, and they dwell on what you were just saying, like, oh, the reason I am the way I am is because I've had this experience in my mom, and and I reacted, and then I was cheated on, and I'm hurt, and it's like, so here I am today, and because of that, it's fine. And when I'm done talking, I want to go to the same thing that I did before I started the conversation. Okay, and that's a pattern, So the awareness is like one level. Okay, but the next thing is like, now what is that? Like Adyashanti talks about that next question. It's something about the next question, but it's like, it's not almost like, what do I need to do so that I could just go like a robot and do it, but what is it that is actually preventing me from doing what I need to do?
Sure.
It's a different line of questioning that goes along with finding that solution.
It is.
So
Yeah.
what is that?
It's expressed in many different ways, right? And what Adyashanti is pointing to, and what other teachers, who use similar techniques are all pointing to, is kind of turning us back in on ourselves, right? Turning us back in on ourselves in a way where we're asking ourselves very deep questions about who it is that we think we are, who it is that we really are. And, so he's really trying to guide people back into that place where he's like, what is preventing you? What's preventing you? So that you can ask yourself the question, what is preventing you? So that you can go through all those stages of examining what it is that you think is preventing you. But the funny thing, right, is that there's nothing really preventing you. It's again, the questions, they're like rabbits we've been given to chase. Like Zen koans and stuff like that. They're rabbits we're given to chase. And so a question like that, to say, well, if you're having these obstacles or having these issues or seeing these problems or not getting it this way, then look deeper, look in a different way, look in a different direction, come at it from a different angle. Like I was listening to one of Adyashanti's talks the other day, and he was saying, I used to get to this place where I got so frustrated because I couldn't get my own mind to quiet. And he goes, so eventually I just asked myself, what if I'll never be able to get my own mind to quiet? What if I'll never have that? And in letting go of his ideas around that, what that meant and where that was going to lead him and his ability to be in it, his ability to do anything, letting go of all that created something new within his experience. It was just because he shifted the angle, shifted the lens, moved it to a different position and said, now what about this? So those kinds of questions, like, what do you see as that impediment on the path of self-realization? And I would add, what do you see as an impediment to self-realization when you're already the self? When you're already that. And it's that lack of acceptance. That's that place that we have to play with and examine within our own experience. Like, am I ready to accept that this is it? Am I ready to accept that this is as good as it's ever going to get? Now, it's not to say that this is as good as it's ever going to get. My goodness, I certainly hope not. But to be completely comfortable with that as an answer. Say, if it is great, if it isn't great, either way, it is just moving. And I don't need to get in the way of it. It's thinking that we're in the way that creates the obstacle. And it's all in the mind. That's what it continues to be. That's all in the mind. The whole thing whole thing, it's in that mind. It's using the mind to ask the mind a question. Why are we doing this to ourselves? I don't know. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Are we having this conversation again? We sure are. It's that place beneath all that. It's that place beneath. It's that place where you can witness it as if you're sitting in the audience going, why are these two guys talking to each other? It's just weird. It's like you're the same person. Why do you think you're better suited over here than over here? It's like being in the audience. You know, we went to the movies a couple times, and they have one of these things at the theater where, you know, it's one of the ads at the beginning where they're telling everybody to be quiet, and the lady's walking through the haunted house, and the voices in the audience are like, don't go in that room, there's a monster in there. She's like, oh, thanks, and she walks back out. You know, it's kind of like that for us. We're in the audience, and we're just kind of watching ourselves up on a stage. If you can reach into that place where you can see, oh, here I am in my mind, but not witnessing it from the mind. Witnessing it from that place that is the witness. And it's not something that can be described. It's not something that you can put in someone else's hands and say, here's what it's like when you're not doing it in the mind. It's like trying to explain to a blind person what the color blue looks like. You know, it's just, you can't do it except by comparison. And what can you use to compare color other than other colors?
I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
If we create our own suffering, okay, if we indeed do, let's say somebody has a bout with, they want to go to like Africa, and they're in the Peace Corps, and they see atrocities happening all around them, right? Are we saying that he created that?
No. I'm saying very much something very different, because that is the kind of the common interpretation of we create our own reality.
Right.
We're projecting ourselves into it. What I'm saying is that we have it's about the relationship that we create in our own mind. So if we go into a place where we see atrocities and we choose to embrace the atrocity, right? We choose to lose ourselves in the tears and the fears, and we get wrapped up in the injustice of it all, and we start to, so that's one way in which we can embrace it. Or we can embrace it from that perspective of, look, here are these beautiful people that are, moving through these adversities with faith and learning wisdom and demonstrating real and true love in the face of real and true adversity. Here's a group of people who are, they're taking care of each other in spite of these terrible circumstances, right? So those are two different positions from which we can experience that particular experience of reality. And it's not that you're creating the reality, it's that in your mind, you're choosing is a loose word. We are choosing how we're going to engage. And it's in anything. It's in anything and everything. So it's not about, reality is always going to be what reality is. It's about how we choose to partake in reality, how we choose to see reality, the stories we choose to tell ourselves about it. And we've had people here who've asked, what about trauma and things like that? How do these things, take us to a place of love? How are they useful? Stuff like that. And, the answer is we get so focused on the trauma, we get so focused on the atrocity, we get so focused on the problem, and we judge it. And what we are failing to recognize is all the beauty that comes of all difficulty. If a tornado comes in and wipes out a town and 100 people are dead, everybody's like, oh my God, 100 people died. Right? That's on the news. Oh, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in damage, whatever the case is. And then you might see on the outskirts of that, like in the local newspaper, dog leads boy free from collapsed building, that right there, those miraculous moments that extend outward from that atrocity, choosing to bear witness to those, seeing the beauty that comes from all of it, You know, if we look at nature, I was sitting on the beach watching the sand crabs yesterday. If we look at the beauty of nature, you know, nature isn't about love and kindness. Nature's about, look, a crab, a bird eats the crab. The bird flies and eats the fish. Something eats the bird. It's, you know, it's the necessity of it. It's the necessity of it. And there is a necessity in the difficulties that we experience, in that it gives us the opportunity to embrace life from a different perspective.
So looking for the gift in
Yeah,
whatever it is that
absolutely.
we're going through.
And we don't have to look at it that way. We can choose to wear it heavy. You know, we can choose to say, well, all I see is the darkness, all I see is the difficulty, and I just want it all to be this way or be this way. And that's great. We can hold on to that. But that is a very powerful source of suffering. To want things to be some way other than the way that they are.
We choose to magnify those, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We can play with it in all different kinds of ways.
I would say also that the creation of that reality, you know, like in Africa or whatever, I mean, I think if you really look into it, you know what Buddhist believes, like everything's like dependent origination, everything's happening, everything's giving birth to everything, you know, continuously. On some level, I bet you, yeah, I can probably come to terms with the fact that if I'm there in that situation, somehow I am part of that reality.
That's right.
You know, no matter whether I created that reality or not, I am there in that reality. I am part of that reality. It exists because I am there.
That's right.
You know, it's like the same thing. It's like mining for diamonds. So if you have somebody here,
Sure.
you know, it's like who's making money off of the diamonds.
Absolutely.
And some doctors buying diamonds to give to his wife, and then they're making all this money, have a wonderful relationship, and then they donate money to help the atrocities in Africa.
Right. It's all
You know,
connected.
so I think, like I said, if we believe that we are one, then to sit and try to find the differences of why I don't understand how I'm not part of that reality, it's already puts me outside, or how I create that reality puts me outside of the reality. It's like the concept of oneness is like I am responsible. One of Adi Shanti's latest post was something about society, like it's a problematic society, or society is in trouble. It's like we are society.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And at some level, a self-responsibility over the fact that I am part of everything that is going on at some level. If we are one, I can't go around saying we're one, and then it's like, why is that happening over there?
Right.
Because I can tell you that I am doing something over here for my own comfort that is probably having to do with something over there. You know,
Yep. It's important to be able to hold that view while also being distant from it. I don't mean distant as in creating, I mean it in terms of having space around it. Because if we start to see ourselves as the epicenter of all things that are wrong with the world, then that becomes very heavy too, right? But it's being able to hold on to that. You know, one of the things I love is that field of now, right? That field of now understanding, right? The field of now is as far as your eyes can see, as far as your ear can hear, everything you can taste, touch, and smell that arises in this moment. That's your field of now. And within your field of now, that's the only place you have the ability to do anything, ever. And there's a big difference between the field of now, including a report on your television screen about an atrocity in Africa, versus your field of now being part of that atrocity. And yet, they both serve their purpose. And you're absolutely right. We are intertwined in the whole thing. You know, if there's something horrible in the world happening somewhere, you know, we, each and every one of us, are both complicit and implicit in the expression of it, the reality of it. Whether we look at it from the perspective of, well, before we ever came into form and experienced consciousness in this way, we set the whole thing in motion and it's all moving. That's true at one level. We can also say, my participation in the insanity of the world, as the world is, continues to breed more insanity. Because I'm so busily trying to grab at everything with my wants and my needs and my desires. I've got to have the latest cell phone, right? And yet all of the components come from some other country somewhere where there could very well be atrocities occurring, right? But it's knowing all those things that on one hand, yes, and on the other hand, but not here. Now, what can I do within my own life that acknowledges that but doesn't wear the weight of it? Which I think is what I'll talk about next week. Slowing down and simplifying our lives to the extent that we can. I think that's probably a good topic for next week. It ties into this. How do we slow down and simplify our lives in a way so that we can find real peace and not inflict ourselves upon the world in such a significant way, in such an impactful way? Yeah.
Talking about things with the world, which happened so close to home, this Orlando incident, like I try not to watch the news and the media because it's just so whack, and as tragic as it is, I know there will be good things to come out of it. It's like, how can I in the now do something positive, or make it seem all okay in the grand scheme of it all?
Sure, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, situations like that one are always interesting. When I see something like that, I just look at it and I say, here we are being handed a lesson as a collective whole, and if we're ready to learn our lesson, we will, and if we aren't, we won't. And ultimately, the lesson is that violence does not serve us, that hate does not serve us, that that creating the situations does not serve us. And yet, as with everything else, we're all complicit in it. We're all implicit in it. We're all partaking in it. We're all propping it up in some way. And then getting into that place where you have to let go of it. Because, even Camille and I, we were having a lovely conversation the other day about some of this stuff. And, there are many people who will say the answer is to control gun laws. Many people who will say, yeah, but you're taking away my rights. And many, so it becomes this argument, right, that has nothing to do with what occurred. Nothing to do with what occurred. And so the thing that we can do, I think, is be the one who looks at the lesson and says, while I can't get everybody else to buy into this, while there's nothing I can do to get other people to see the opportunity for us to learn to be more loving and more kind with each other, I can't expect that of anyone else, but I can bring it into my own experience. That's the one thing that we can do. We can look at all these events, we can look at all these things that are occurring, and we can say, how can I use this as a way to deepen my own understanding of humanity, my own acceptance of humanity, my own understanding of what love really is, and how can I practice love and kindness in a deeper way in my own life? That's all we can really step away from those experiences with. Now, if we are connected to the experience in some other way, then that may rise to the surface. If you lost a loved one, that would hold a greater weight than, oh, there's this thing that happened over there. It doesn't affect me directly, but it's an opportunity, right? But, so that's a whole different place. But yeah, that's the only thing we can do. So how can I use this as an opportunity to deepen my understanding of what love really is? Because arguing about it doesn't take us anywhere. Arguing about it just creates more separation and division. Well, this or that or this, great, I'm not trying to prevent it from happening again. It's going to happen again. For as long as we continue to be so completely wrapped up in our ignorance, these things will arise over and over and over again, as they are meant to. As they will.
I've been thinking about the whole thing, and it just seems like, to me, it was like, as long as we don't understand or come to terms that nothing is duality. Like the minute that I start thinking like this is good and this is bad, I'm already part of creating that.
Yeah.
If I don't have the understanding that there is no good and bad,
That's right.
that it's just level of ignorances and levels of people like being in the dark and how they're acting out. But if I jump into the judgment call of what is good and that is right, it's already the thinking that they already have.
That's right.
That's why they're doing what they're doing, because they believe that this is good and this is bad, and there isn't. It's just the level
Judgment
of,
is what led there.
the level of not understanding non-duality, the level of not understanding separationism, and then finding the answer through duality, finding the answer through separationism, you know? It's like, you know, today I heard it's like the Muslims is the only religion that actually tells you to go and kill you if you don't believe the same thing. And I'm like, so what do you do about it? Well, you gotta kill the Muslims, you know? It's like, wait, okay, isn't that the same thing? You know, so, but I went below that was just like duality, was just like, it's not yin and yang, you know, if that's what you're doing. It's not just like, we're one, and some people are ignorant. How do we help them within their ignorance with love and tolerance and compassion? You know, rather than just creating this black and white, it has to be this or those. That is okay. That's
Right.
but the minute that
It's
you jump into
education,
the minute you jump into that line of thinking, you're already lost. You're not part of the solution, I think.
I think, you know, Gandhi said it best, right? Gandhi said it best when he said, my life is my It's, and I don't remember how he actually phrased it, but, you know, we sit here and we have these conversations, and they're beautiful, wonderful conversations. They're expression that we're using words to try to reach into something that's deeper than words. It's beautiful. But, you know, the best way to demonstrate our understanding is through the way that we live, through the actions that we take, through the ways in which we choose to be there for each other. And it doesn't mean that we're necessarily, you know, doing everything that everybody always wants us to do, but it means that we're allowing ourselves to be present with each other. We're allowing ourselves to be present. And, you know, it's no more difficult and it's no easier than just that. Just being present for each other, being the example of the change that we want to see in the world. Being the example of what we want to see, not talking about it. If we get up and, you know, we start saying, well, I think everybody should love everybody and I think it should all be good and I don't understand why this is going on, right there, you're judging everybody. You're judging everybody the moment you do that. The moment you say, why can't I do it? You're judging yourself. Judgment is one of the biggest root problems. Just allow everything to be as it is. Allow yourself to be as you are. Allow others to be as they are. Allow the whole thing to be what it is. Every time you try to step in and control it all, it backfires. If you haven't seen that yet. But it's when we learn how to back off a little bit. You go, all right, well, you know. And we try to, you know, we move with action. We demonstrate through our own presence. You know, there's a lovely saying in the Tao. It says, the master does not teach with words. Because you can't. I talk about part of this, the deepening space that takes us into that place where everything is silent, still, and quiet. Right? That's the essence of the Tao. And so when you're silent, still, and quiet, you step out into the world, you be what the moment requires of you, and then you step back into that place that is silent, still, and quiet. And so we have to be that. Not talk about it, not tell stories about it, not say, well, tomorrow I'll be a good person. I've got a vacation coming up. After that, I'll be able to relax and I'll treat people a little bit better. It's not that. It's right now. It's right now. It's that moment that shows you walk in the door, you go home tonight, you walk in the door, and your significant other's like, I just had a really shitty day and I need to talk about it, and all you want to do is take off your shoes and curl up. But you choose instead to be fully present with that person that needs you in that moment. Maybe not for a huge amount of time. Maybe you do need to create boundaries and honor yourself and honor your own experience. But that opportunity exists in almost every moment. Just that opportunity to say, I'm going to be present here in this way. And I'm not going to create excuses for distancing myself from what the moment requires of me. Being fully present with each other. That's really within your field of now. Being fully present in your field of now. If we could do that, man, that'd be great. It'd be great. I don't know if I touched on that, but
I'll share a real brief experience I had last week. just had my driver's license over like 6 weeks now after a couple of years, and I got pulled over last week, and I really didn't do anything wrong, maybe speeding, just a hair of the limit. So as I'm sitting in the car and the officer's out there doing what he does, I was able to focus on the now and know that everything is perfect and okay in God's world right this second. And it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't take it or anything.
I had an experience very much like that. It's beautiful.
It was cool. I was so okay with it, you know. If I get a ticket, I get a ticket. If I don't. But just like everything is perfect in God's world right this second, like it always is, right this second. I'm trying to focus on, you know, being in the now.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
That's
So
great.
I'm learning that. It's a process. But
It is.
it was really cool. It really was.
There are all these miracles around us. There really are, you know, and it doesn't matter how we conceptualize our notion of God or universe or consciousness. What we know is that there is something at work behind the scenes. There's something at work behind the scenes. And we don't necessarily need to understand what it is. Just understand that it's moving us in the direction of its own purpose and surrendering into that. That's lots of those kinds of moments, they happen to show us, to give us the active experience of surrender from a place of deep awareness. To be in that place, because I had a very similar experience. I got pulled over and I was just like, I'm like, the last thing I need is a ticket, and then I'm just surrendering the whole thing. If I get a ticket, I get a ticket. If I don't get a ticket, I don't get a ticket. Either way, this is going to serve whatever purpose it needs to serve, and I'm just getting out of the way. And the cop comes up and he goes, well, you know, it would have been a $400 ticket, but I'm going to let you go with a warning and have a good day. And I just sat there and I go, wonderful, beautiful, thank you. And it really wouldn't have mattered either way. But the clarity and the awareness and the surrender, right? It's not to say that it's always rewarded, because that's not what happens either. The moment we think we've got any idea of how it works, if you think you know how it works, you're kidding yourself and you're going to be thrown backwards in some other strangeness. But when you can experience it and it all kind of comes together and you're just witnessing the whole movement and you're like, wow, this is really interesting. Approaching it from that perspective of curiosity and gratitude. This is interesting. And to start seeing that there's something active in that way. About half the time we need it to be. About half as often as we want it to be. We'll only get about half of what we want. If that. But you know, it's beautiful to have those synchronistic moments, those beautiful unfolding moments that are kind of, you know, they're an opportunity to glimpse behind the veil, to see with within our own experience that there's something at work. And it's that loving, intelligent awareness that is moving all things in the direction of its own purpose. It is the essence of being. It is what we are. It's what we arise from. It's what we return to. It's what we dance within without ever having gone anywhere. It's that place from which duality springs, right? Going back to the duality. Duality is the dance of a background and a foreground so that experience can be experienced, and then collapses back in on itself. That which is dual becomes non-dual, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, which is a part of our humanity. Being able to accept the back and forth, the pendulum swing. Conscious, unconscious. Good day, bad day. Beautiful moment, shitty moment. To be able to experience the swinging of the pendulum and be completely okay with it. That's our
So if
humanity.
somebody has a trauma situation in life, so what are the tools that they use to get out of the trauma that they keep bringing into their mind?
Well, for every person, it's different, right? For every single person, it's a question. It really is a question of where are we starting from, right? What is our current concept of self? How are we currently defining or identifying our concept of self? Because if we're, let's say, the trauma hits us in a place where we're not really terribly identified, well, it might not be that big of a deal. Whereas if it strikes at the very core of who we think we are, it might shake us to the depths of our foundation. So it starts with a question of what is the relationship that we currently have with our concept of self? And then what is the nature of the experience? What is the nature of this thing that we're experiencing as trauma, as difficult? And then it's being able to create space within which the event and experiencing the event are held with compassion and non-judgmental awareness. And then we have to begin to ask ourselves what the lessons that we're being presented with are teaching us. Because often trauma and difficulty and painful experiences, there's something there that they're teaching us. And I did a talk on this a couple of weeks ago where suffering is our greatest teacher. Our experience of suffering is our greatest teacher. And what we're being shown over and over and over again is to move from a place where everything is made personal into that place where we see that it is all impersonal. Being able to look beyond the notion, the concept of self, being able to see through how we label and define ourselves and into that place where it's all just a dance, where the concept of self is being surrendered. Because if you're continually being beaten up by life and your attitude in this whole process is, I'm being beaten up by life, that will be the continual saga. Whereas when we can make that momentary shift in consciousness and we can say, okay, there's something here that's showing me that I'm not really in charge. Not really. I can try to move things in a certain direction, but ultimately, life is just what life is. And life is the sum total of this moment. So when people have trauma or experiences or difficulties, they say, I lost this, or I lost that, or I was hit with this, or I was hit with that. To me, it all comes back down to the same thing. And I've said this before, right? Insert dilemma here. But it all comes back down to the same thing. It's all helping us see through the illusory concept of self. That's why these lessons are here. And it's very difficult for the ego to surrender to that. It's very difficult for I to let go enough to allow space for that. And yet, when we do allow space for that, it's all revealed to us as being true, experientially, directly. It's not something that you can read on a page or hear in a talk or anything like that. It's those moments of, it could go this way, it could go this way. Or it did go this way, it did go this way. And seeing the beauty in it all. Even if it's a horrible beauty that we see. The bird ate the fish. Well, the fish was just swimming along having its own nice day, and now it's gone. I mean, that was very traumatic for the fish. But the bird needed to eat, and the bird had a really good day. It's just a matter of perspective. It's a point of view. And if it's impersonal, then we can shift our point of view. If it's personal, we only have one, me. So I don't know if that helps.
And it's just a memory, right? It's a memory, what happened to me, what this person did to me, how this person treated me. It's not in my field now.
When it
It's a
is,
story
yeah.
I keep on telling myself that I'm choosing to identify with.
Well, yes, yes.
Until what? Until you
Well, it's getting to that place where you understand it's only this. There's only ever this moment. Only this. There is no yesterday. It's setting aside the web of yesterdays. It's untying ourselves from the weight of what has come before. It's that notion of rebirth, right, in Christian tradition. It's that notice of of beginner's mind in the Buddhist tradition. It's that notion of everything being spontaneous and new within the Hindu belief systems. It's all touching on the same thing. That if part of our conditioning, part of the way in which we experience the present moment is through the lens of our conditioning. What is the lens of your conditioning? But all of the ways within which you have taken yesterday and formed a view about it, created a judgment about it, put yourself in a position in orientation to it. And so when we're able to let go of who you were yesterday and what the world was yesterday, and you allow yourself to be what you are now, and you allow the world to be what it is now in every moment, then it's one aspect of being free, one aspect of what freedom means. Freedom in a way that isn't weighed down by the web of yesterdays. It's if you recognize that everything's always changing. Say, for instance, yesterday you were having a really bad day and you met somebody for the very first time. And, you weren't putting your best foot forward. You were in a bad mood. You just weren't yourself. And yet, this person's experience of you is just that. They saw you on your worst day, your worst version of your worst self. And, if you're that person that looks at every person and says, oh, look at who you are because of all of the yesterdays. This is how you were yesterday. This is how you were the day before. So that's the pattern. And because that's the pattern, that's the box I'm going to put you in this moment. I'm going to put the world in a box. I'm going to put you in a box. I'm going to put myself in a box. It's all going to be put in all these boxes. They're all labeled beautifully, but they're all yesterday. They're all yesterday. And the best thing to do is take all these boxes filled with yesterdays and put them on the fire to let them burn up in the experience of being. When we can let go of who I was yesterday, when I can let go of who you were yesterday and allow you to be who you are now, great freedom is created in that exchange. Now you have the ability to embrace anybody at any time, no matter how they are. Oh, look, today you're having this day. All right, well, I guess it's this. Today you're having this day. All right, I guess it's this. So that continuity of yesterdays, that process of, I'm this person because I've always been this person. Like that kind of thing. You are that person because you've always been that person. It's that kind of thing. It's like, man, what a heavy weight to carry. What a heavy thing to put on others. Yeah, there's some truth to, there are these patterns of behavior and I see these flux, There is some truth to that. And to be cognizant of that, to be aware of that, to be part of that, to be present with that. But not to lock people into it, not to put everyone in the straitjacket of your mind.
Kind of like saying I got here to this point because of all these things. All of those things had to do with me getting to here, right here where
That's
I am
right.
now. But this is now, and move on.
Move on.
That it's not, that it does. You don't have to carry that influence with to the next moment. You can recognize you got here from it, but
I know that I used to have these experiences before my awakening where I would have tremendous difficulty sleeping at night because I would have a memory of something I did wrong.
right.
Or, I would have this nervousness to this thing that had occurred in my day. Or I was experiencing anxiety in relationship to a particular person I might have to interact with again, right? All these kinds of things that would come up all the time. And I would encounter something. Oh, I'm going into this meeting with so-and-so. Well, so-and-so is a complete asshole. This is all they ever do. They're just bitching and whining and moaning and blah, blah, blah. And so I walk into that room and I have that meeting, that person is wonderful, except that I choose to continue to see them that way. And so even though maybe they were presenting themselves in a very neutral way that really doesn't have any of the meaning I assigned it, because I approached it from my perspective, from all the ways in which we engaged yesterday, I've locked you into this place. I've made you negative, even though maybe there was nothing to it that way. It's just me in my mind, my notion, my ideas, my concept, my story about who I think you are. The egoic manifestation of you that I'm projecting. Usually it's even more fun when we play with those notions, because we begin to see that what we dislike most in others is what we haven't yet come to terms with for ourselves. Boy, that's a fun one to play with too.
Can you repeat that?
The last part?
The last part.
Well, how we'll engage with certain people and be like, I don't like you for this or that reason. And if we look deeply, often what we're struggling against is that those things are in us. Those things that we dislike most in others are usually the things we dislike most in ourselves. And part of this process of acceptance, coming to terms with our humanity, includes being able to see all of it in ourselves. When somebody says you're an asshole, you go, yes, I am. Sometimes. Or you're a beautiful person. Yes, I am. Sometimes. But neither one of those labels defines me. They're just aspects of the movement that I represent within the field of now.
Right. I know for me, even when I first started coming to this group, was that 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
It's been like 3 or 4 months now.
Right.
It's
In the
been a
beginning,
while.
right? I was so caught up in my egoic self, and I realized today that it has its own survival mechanism.
Oh, sure.
So as I sat here in the beginning listening to you, all I was hearing was way to actually deny whatever was coming towards me and justify the way that I wanted to believe it. Because my ego wanted to just remain so tightly, it's like, this is my survival, this is my identification. If you take that away from me, then what?
Who am I now?
Right. But as I started opening up and having a little bit more of awakenings, I realized today that it is my identification. Do I want to grab onto the problem and why it's a problem and be in the problem, or do I want to say, okay, that was the problem, what's the solution? And opening up and shedding that part that I have, that part of the egoic self that wants to maintain itself, opening me up to the realization that there's something within me that wants to support my identification, you
Right.
know? And even as a therapist, working with people with trauma, working with people, and me suffering for depression and being labeled, you have a chemical imbalance.
Right.
You will always have a chemical imbalance. You will always suffer from depression. If you had 2 in your lifetime, most likely you're going to have more
Sure.
episodes. You will need meds. Well, I don't take any meds anymore, okay? I'm not saying don't take them until you don't need them.
Right.
But I used to tell people that because that was based on the studies. I believe what I was taught in school.
Right.
Okay, so my ego, being the professional, well, it's going to justify what I'm selling you on. And then on top of it, I had my own issues that I had to buy into because that was my solution at the time. So I did lock you in. I didn't mean to, but I realized, and that's the way that it
This
happens.
is the way the mind works.
It's
It's
how
the way
it
the
goes.
mind works.
But today, it's kind of like, I see that if I identify myself, it's necessary to be in victim role, to have compassion. But it's not okay to stay and remain, you will forever have to be in victim role. And it isn't until I realized, until I opened up to the fact that it's like, I can let go. Then I opened up to, okay, what's new? The open mind, the empty bowl. So what is there? What else can I put in? But while I was here kind of like identifying with my victim, I am a depressive, I have a chemical imbalance. I had surrendered to the idea that that's just how it was, and I wasn't open to seeing anything else. And so the ego identification to whatever it is, it's really strong.
It's very strong.
Because it's what I know. And even at
That's
this
right.
level, I'm probably still not aware until the pain gets so horrendous, okay, that the whole time I was still being driven by ego identifications. That I'm not aware of them until it's like, wham, oh, okay, I get it. It's like, yeah, it's not really what I want, but I'm fighting to keep it. You know.
And we've talked about this before too, right? That there is a place within the journey. There's a point where we understand the illusory nature of ego. We begin to recognize that the ego itself was never separate from the pure being that it arose from. That the expression of egoic consciousness is something that occurs within and because of the movement of consciousness itself. So there is a point where even the ego as a notion begins to drift away, begins to kind of fall away. Because, you know, it's that idea. When I say, you know, you're exactly as you're supposed to be, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing in any given moment, right? Whether you're conscious or unconscious, meaning whether you're identified with ego or not identified with ego. The ego is just part of it. It's just part of it.
So being aware of that, there's a possibility of identifying yourself as somebody who's identifying the ego.
Everything can be a trap. Everything can be a trap. Everything.
I got it.
Yeah. It's one of those fun things. It's again, it goes back to at the end of the day, that place we're reaching for. Every single one of us already has it. These conversations that we're having, completely unnecessary, and yet, in some way, they are necessary because it's that opportunity for us to all learn and grow and understand together. And that's how this works. But at another level, it's not necessary because everything is already contained within the essence of what you are. It's all right there, just waiting to be discovered. But not even really waiting to be discovered. It's already expressing itself. It's just, will your journey include being fully aware of that or not? And either way, it's perfectly fine. When we do shift our consciousness in that place where we're moving from awareness, it has a different tone, a different flavor. But understanding that that flavor and all the other flavors are, you know, what make the dish so tasty. You know, salt and pepper have to go together in appropriate amounts to, you know, achieve a certain balance of flavor, a certain balance of taste. How are we doing on time? Okay. Good. So we'll just take a few more minutes and then we'll wrap up. It's you know, it's really so amazing when we're able to reach into that place for ourselves. When we realize that we're a fish swimming in the sea already. You know, that vision of, you know, you're on a life raft. The mind is like a life raft and it's floating upon the seas of consciousness. That's just an image that is meant to depict the notion of ego in resistance to the flow of life. And yet, that's illusory. You're already a fish swimming in the water. But it's because we think we're on a raft. It's because we think we're on it. That's why those, you know, kind of being able to pick it apart from both points of view is so important. Being able to say, on one hand, there's something you have to do. On one hand, there's something you have to do within your experience of being in order to find freedom. And on the other hand, you're already free, and the whole journey is just a journey about realizing what that means. And you don't actually have to do anything to get there. Because everything that needs to be done will find itself being done. because it is the necessity. It is the movement of things. It's like I said, we'll talk next week. I think, like I said, the topic next week will be simplicity, slowing down and simplifying. Because what was the thing I had said to you? I am the essence of simplicity expressing itself in this moment. I am the essence of simplicity expressing itself in this moment. And I think when we can kind of approach life from that perspective, we're not doing so much. We're being all that we are already. Just swimming in the seas of consciousness, going, oh look, oh look, oh look. Experiencing life from a perspective of curiosity and gratitude.
How does that go along with creating?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Because the notion of creating, it's not so much that we're creating anything, it's that we're participating in something.
So you don't think we're creators?
I think we have the opportunity within the experience of being to create in every possible direction there is. But I think that being able to understand that creation occurs of its own accord and that there is no I in the creation, it's another delicate balancing point. It's being able to allow yourself to be used as a vehicle or as an expression or as a movement, just surrendering to the beauty of it all and doing what is required of the moment. In that way, there may be creation. There may be creation. But we're participating in that process. We are not the creator of it. We are participating in it. For instance, in this moment, this experience isn't something that you yourself are creating. There are several of us here in this moment creating it together. And can any one of us be pinpointed or identified as the creator of it? Or are we all just participating in it? And within participation of it, we are creating something. Something is being created. Deeper level of understanding, a new level of insight, an exasperation with the stupidity of it all. I mean, whatever it is that's being created, it's that sense of creation is coming out of participation in.
Maybe just like expressions of what already is.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah. So I think, there is, because there are many, and I try to slice these things carefully, because there are many belief systems today that you're creating your own reality, you're creating this. The child who was born in Africa to a family who has no food didn't create that. It's not possible to put the weight of that on that child. That child is participating in the life that they were given. They are manifesting in a way that requires of them to participate in life a certain way. They didn't create it. And you could say, well, their parents created it for them. Well, perhaps, but their parents didn't create the situation they find themselves in either. They're participating. We're all participating in the ebb and flow of consciousness. We're all participating in the weaving in and out of. We're all participating in our own way. And there's no I in the process of participation. I had a young man come to me the other day and he was saying, hey, I'm writing a lot of poetry. And I want to get it published, so it's my poetry, and I want to get it published. And I was basically saying, well, you're assuming it's yours. The act of creation, right? Expressed through that individual, yes. But is it really his? If the essence of his creation is the sum total of the experiences from which he is writing that poetry, is his poem about his relationship with his father his? Or is it something that comes from the experience of that relationship? Is it his? Or is it something larger, something broader, something more
Okay,
participatory?
I had a dream when I was 18
Mhm.
of a motorcycle accident. And about 2 months later, I got in a motorcycle accident. And it was devastating to the other guy.
Sure.
I mean, he almost lost his life, and he lost body parts and all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
I remember waking up and I was like, before this accident happened, I saw that accident. Did I create that in my dream, or did it just come to me like from consciousness that was like trying to, hey, be careful, yeah, a warning, you know, in this certain time, I saw a lot of stuff happening in that couple of years, in that almost that exact area. I'm driving down the road. We were getting ready to fly, take off, and it was a bad cloud, and my friend was like, no, we're not going to take off today. We walked off the airplane, drove down the road, and I was literally a block away from something that happened 10 years before that. No, 3 years before that, sorry. And a lady flipped over and was trapped and died right in front of me, her last breath of air. And right across the road, I had gotten in an accident with my friend, a motorcycle accident. So I was like, what's going on here? I mean, am I creating this? Is this a warning sign? What is really, I mean, at that point in my life, I was really trying to figure out what was going on, because I was seeing, I mean, there were things coming to me.
Yeah.
And I actually shut it off.
Sure.
And I think I was fearful of it, because I was like, what's going on? What, am I creating this? Am I dialing in? What am I dialing into?
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And today, to this day, I still occasionally, but I shut stuff off now. I don't want to know about things, and I think, I don't know, there must be a fear in me that
Sure.
that I somehow that I dial into stuff that, I don't know, it's crazy. And it happened to me in Costa Rica. I was at my friend's place, and I was like, I really want this boat. And when I got back, the guy calls me about 4 days later and goes, hey, this Vern, I'm going to give you this boat, and he gave me the boat. But the creepy thing about it was my friend got murdered there right after that. And I was like, what's going on? What is happening here to me? I mean, what am I having to do with the creating this, or am I just, I don't know. It's been
You
really,
see how that becomes such a heavy weight, though.
yeah, it's been a heavy
If
weight.
you take ownership of this idea that I'm creating,
Right.
and what you see happening around you is filled with darkness, that's a real, there's a good reason for that to seem like, a fear, for it to
Right.
create a fear, good reason for that. But what I would say is, I know when I have these experiences, and the way I suggest to other people that they embrace these experiences, is not so much to get caught up in the story of the experience, the specific details of this
Mhm.
happened or that happened or where it lands, but to rather look at it as simply one of the many ways in which you are being shown there's something larger at work.
Right, I do feel that.
Just to hold it that way, not to make it personal, not to say I'm creating this, but I had experiences where, I saw something and maybe it turned out a certain way and I'm like, oh, that's cool, But I don't look at those isolated experiences, because there's still an experiencer in those. Where I look at it now is just those subtle reminders of there is something larger at work, and it's all okay. And it isn't my job to try to fix it all. My job is just to be present with what is. And that, I think, helps kind of lighten the burden. Because if you're the one creating your own reality, if we get into that place, I'm creating my own reality. And if I just tweak it this way or tweak it that way, I can have what I want. But inherent in all want is going to be the seeds of disappointment. Even if I manifest my own reality, if I create my own reality, even if I create the reality I want, I'm going to have to hold on to it. And what if the reality I've created isn't the reality I thought I wanted? Now what if I want it to be different? And now I have a new reality, and that one didn't satisfy me either. Now I want a new reality. That one didn't work either. Now I want a new one. Now I want a new one. And this understanding begins to evolve within us that the answer is never over there. The answer is always right here, present now in this moment. Whatever the moment may contain. Maybe it contains some wild, wacky craziness that I can't explain.
Right.
But I'm not creating it. It just is. It just is. If I created it, I did it long before I came into this form. I did it long before I became the experience or the expression of that which is. I basically, you can look at it one way and you can say, I, as a conscious expression of all that is, created this world, spun the dial, and just dove in and relinquished all of my power when I did that. When I did that, I became the experience of what is. I chose that. I created it before I came into it. And now I'm experiencing it. Now, there was this lovely story, and this is the last thing I'll use. There was this lovely story I remember reading years and years and years ago in a science fiction magazine. And I loved it so much. Now I look upon it with great beauty, great understanding. So there's this guy, he's a writer, and he's at a cocktail party, and he's talking to a couple of people. And he's telling these people about how he created this beautiful world that had all these interesting things happen. And then something started to become dark in his world and all started to fall apart. And, the characters were really inviting and the experiences were really real. And it had its ups and downs, and it had its moments of tremendous beauty and its moments of tremendous difficulty. And then he started writing about how to get out of it, how to get out of it. And somebody who was there at the party was asking, well, how did your characters get out of it? And he goes, what characters? I'm talking about the story that I've written. And I'm still trying to figure out what it is, what my role in it is. I wrote it, I did it, I put it all together. I'm the one that put it into action. I'm the one that put it into motion. And now here I am in the story that I wrote. Here I am in the story that I wrote. So now you're a participant, a character within the story that you wrote. One of many. We're all just characters in each other's lives, in the movies of each other's lives. All participating in the same great unfolding of what is. And then we start to spin into stories. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. It was a lovely discussion, and we can continue chatting a little bit more, but thank you all. And like I said, next week I'll put something together around just simplifying, slowing down and simplifying, so that we can connect with that presence in our lives a little bit more easily. So again, thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.